Welcome back to Tech Vets, the podcast, and today we're joined by Adrian Montague, who is a software developer for Smart DCS IT. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to meet you as well.
Well, you too, and I think you're the first software developer that we've spoken to, which is really exciting because I
Mhm.
know that there are a lot of people joining Tech Vets who are looking to get into that career or retrain in that pathway, but they don't know where to start. So,
Mhm.
what was your connection to the military?
Sure. So I left university in 2019 with a degree in mechanical engineering, and decided to join the army as an officer at the start of 2020. So I've got my family has quite a long history with the military. And I knew that I didn't want to go straight into sort of civilian life straight away. And the army had a great pathway for engineers. So I joined the REME, and spent 4.5 years with the REME based in Colchester, with 8 Field Parachute Regiment before moving on to Lyneham, and being a platoon commander, sort of training the next generation of REME soldiers. Um, During my time there, I absolutely loved the army, but I really, really missed the sort of problem solving side of things that my engineering degree um, had. And so, I decided to leave and decided to pursue a career in software engineering because some of my friends had got into it and they'd spoken really highly of it. I had lots of sort of mechanical engineer friends at uni that sort of switched careers, and so I spoke to them. I got introduced to tech vets as well, and through them I met some more software engineers. I can go on to that in a bit, but essentially what happened is at the start of 2023 I decided this is what I want to do. So I started to teach myself how to code. So in the evenings, in and around work, I picked up a Python course on Udemy and was just working my way through that. It was a brilliant course by this lady called Angela Yu. Highly recommend it. It's called 100 Days of Code, and every day she brings up a new topic and gets you to complete these small challenges, to really get you thinking about programming in it's just a different way of thinking, really. And so it's really getting your head around that initially before you can go on to the more complex things.
What kind of made you? I know you said your peers spoke about their experiences
Mhm.
of working in software engineering. What what was it about that specific area that they enjoyed, which made you think it would be for you?
Yeah, it was essentially just being able to, use a computer that pretty much everyone has and then build something from scratch, using information that is readily available online, and then really seeing something, go from nothing to, a fully formed web application that might solve a problem that you have, might solve a problem that someone else has, but really being able to do it from, the comfort of your home. And it differs to mechanical engineering where, I've worked, I spent a year in industry at uni at a design and manufacturing firm. And then when you're going from initial concept to actual manufactured product, it takes a lot of work. You got to have the raw materials, you got to have the right machining tools, and there's a lot of red tape, in that sort of process. Whereas building software, no red tape at all. You can just go from nothing to something quite quickly, and that's generally what I love about it. Like, I love building things and love making things, and that's why, yeah, I wanted to get into it.
So when you were doing your Python training, kind of, I guess that was during your resettlement or the year after you
No,
signed on?
so I was still working in the army, so this was literally just in the evenings, sort of an hour in the evening, and on the weekends that I'd be doing this course.
Okay. And how did you get from kind of when you signed off? How did you
Mhm.
build on those skills? So if you'd already kind of done the foundations in Python, what then did you do to, if you knew software developer, or that was the role that you were
Yeah,
aiming for, what other courses or training did you do to kind of bolster up your CV?
sure. So I got around, I think maybe 3/4 of the way through that course before I thought, you know what, I'm going to build something that I find interesting. And I can't stress this enough. And if anyone wants to get into software development, tutorials only help you so far. You really want to find a problem that you have and solve it, and that will force you to go look things up, to try things out, and you're going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn. Not so much following a tutorial, but actually going out and problem solving with a real problem. And so I remember one of the first applications I ever built. So I'm quite a keen runner, and I'm always on the lookout for deals on really expensive running shoes, because they're not cheap, and they online you do get some deals come through, but these sites don't sort of alert you to these deals. So what I built was sort of a web scraper that scraped different running shoe sites for all their running shoes and their prices. I stored that in a database, and then what I had was sort of, you'd sign up to a shoe, and then input your email, and you would get an alert if that shoe went on sale. So you wouldn't have to keep checking these sites over and over. And so that was, one of the first projects that I built. And then during my resettlement, I was really, really fortunate to get put in touch with a guy called Peter Brooksmith, who is the sort of CEO and founder of a company called DT Squad. And they train and hire veterans in software development, and consultancy. So I met with him sort of halfway through 2023, ended up working for him during my resettlement, at the end of 2023. And with them, I was involved with a few different projects, sort of end-to-end projects, going from, designing the front end, um, web application that you would see on in your browser, to configuring the back end, which sort of holds all the business logic, to configuring the database, so how data is stored and retrieved. So really sort of building up my skills in these sort of areas. um, and then finally, when I did leave the army this year in April, unfortunately I couldn't join DT Squad. There just wasn't an availability for me. So I managed to find a company called Inversity, which we might talk about later. And what they do, so they're sort of all about training the future sort of technologists. And the great thing about their site is that they release a monthly challenge, and these challenges differ greatly from one month to the other. And James and Mark, the two founders of Inversity, what they do is they go and interview people in industry, and they will upload this interview into a chatbot. And then what you have to do as the developer is interview the chatbot, figure out what the problems are that these people in industry are having, and then building a software prototype to solve that problem, and also producing a 3-minute pitch video. So really, developing your skills in communication, in problem solving, and building something from scratch, which it's invaluable to improving yourself as a software developer. So highly recommend, if you're getting into development, check out Inversity.
And I'll put the link to Inversity in the description to this podcast, because it is a phenomenal system, and it's something that the Forces Employment Charities um, Young People's Programme uses, and directs some Forces family members to, because it is such an awesome platform. So did you take part in those challenges, and did you win any of them?
Yes, so I've taken part in two challenges, and I have won both of those challenges. I, I also, well, I recently took part in, so they hold a hackathon as well every 4 months, which is a team event. So I was down in London, yes, 2 days ago on Saturday. This project was sponsored by the Crown Estate, so we were put up in one St James's Park next to Piccadilly. Had a great view over London. Met some amazing people on the day. Unfortunately, our team didn't win, so now I'm sort of 2 for 3. But but nevertheless, it was a great chance to learn about working in teams where you don't know the other people, and then really having that time pressure of only having one day to complete a project as opposed to the whole month that I had for the other two challenges. So yeah, again, great event.
With the other 2 challenges, what's the one that you're most proud of? I mean, obviously you won both, so you're proud of them both, but just to give listeners a flavour of
Hmm.
the problem that was posed to you and how you developed a solution, can you talk us through one of them?
Sure. So the first one was sponsored by a global market research company called Ipsos. And their problem, or one of their main problems, was engaging young people in market research. Um, Young people tend to find traditional surveys pretty boring, and just not very, they don't there's no incentive for them to do it, essentially. And when you're sort of gathering market research as a company, obviously you want to get a very wide range of answers from a host of different age groups, and missing out on this sort of 18 to 24 year range is quite a big blow for them. So that was the challenge, or that was the part that I focused on. And what I built was a conversational chatbot where you would interact with a chatbot in a sort of in a friendly way, as in, yeah, it sort of mimicked a chat app on your phone. So you could quite easily, pick it up, and you'd felt comfortable using it. And it had a very friendly interface, and you essentially filled out a survey, but through chatting to this app rather than, specifically answering survey questions. So it was just more interactive, more user friendly, and sort of targeted at an age group where everyone has a phone, and everyone knows how to use a sort of chat application. So yeah, that's what I built.
That sounds amazing. And what happens when you win those competitions? I mean, Ipsos must be thrilled that someone's come up with a solution for them, but what do you get out of it apart from building your portfolio?
Yeah, so there is a cash prize for the monthly winner of £1,000. So it's a lot of money, especially as I was sort of unemployed at this point doing these challenges. So it was nice to have a bit of income. But also, you get feedback from both James and Mark, but also the companies that sponsor these events. So I had feedback from the Ipsos CTO, and Ipsos, a global company, again, with thousands of employees. And what we also got through them was that they put all the entries on their sort of internal site as well, and had all their internal employees, see our pictures and vote on them as well. So as well as winning the challenge, you got some real great feedback from some big players in industry, and it's just incredible thing to put on your CV and say that you've done. And then you can directly quote, this is what the CTO of Ipsos has said about this project, which is fantastic.
That's amazing. And I guess going from the disappointment of not being able to have working with DT squad, but then not being able to get that permanent role when you were coming out of the military or the REME.
Hmm.
Um, how did you feel? Because of course, if that's what, that's the planned route, that's what, was the plan, but that's changed when the job's not there. How did you recover and bounce back from that?
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing news, because I had a really great time working at DT Squad. They have some very talented people working there, and Peter is just a person with a wealth of knowledge. So I learned a lot from him. Um, but yeah, so I suppose, putting that disappointment aside, I I just got to applying to to jobs within sort of a 4 week span. I think I had 3 interviews, two of which I got offers from. Um, and I think, one of the key things into sort of making my CV stand out, aside from working at DT Squad, was having these projects that I'd done through Inversity, and it was just something that I could talk about in the interview in depth because I'd created these projects from scratch, so I knew them inside out. Um, and and yeah, essentially just moving forward, just wanting to create things, um, and build on the skills that I already had got from the sort of working with DT Squad. Um, so I mean, I was a little bit worried that I wasn't going to find a job instantly, but as soon as I got through that first interview, which I didn't get an offer from, there was just a lot to be learned. Interviewing is a skill as in its own right. So just the more you can get, the more you do, just the more comfortable you'll feel when talking or when being interviewed, I guess. Yeah.
What was the so you got offers off two of the interviews, but the one that you didn't get an offer from, did they give you any useful feedback?
Yes. So that was probably due to a case of my CV not being uh, up to date. So my CV went through quite a few iterations, probably seven or eight, and the CV is there to be constantly reviewed, and that was a big takeaway from my time applying. Is you've always got to be reviewing it. You've got to tailor it to the specific role and job that you're applying for. And I think with this company, my CV wasn't at a good enough state for them to have a good understanding of where my level was at. So I think I went into that interview and I think they assumed that I was sort of at a lower level than where I was at. And then it was just, and the interview was just sort of spent me trying to prove that I'm actually not just coming into programming. I actually do know what I'm talking about. But unfortunately, they didn't take me forward to the next stage. But I just used it as a learning process. And it was great just to get that one under my belt, and it made me more comfortable going into the next two.
Do you think you perhaps undersold yourself? Because it's something that quite a lot of service leavers say is they come out and they're almost too humble to champion what they've done and they or even acknowledge how good they actually are. Do you feel that you had a touch of that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I still find it hard to talk myself up, especially in interviews. But there's the little things that you can do to sort of get around that. When I talk about a project, I always use the word we. We did this, we did that, because at the end of the day, it was a team effort. But when you're going into these interviews, you really need to talk about what you did. So start using the word I. I did this, I did that. And then once you start doing that, then it becomes a little more natural to start talking about what you did, what you accomplished. Um, but again, it's practice. You've got to practice these things, even if you're just practicing with yourself, practicing with a friend. Get people to ask you these questions, and then really start thinking of what you did, what you accomplished, because the military gives you so many transferable skills, and it's getting that across to these civilian employees that you have these skills and that you will benefit their company when you join them. And so it's really figuring out how you translate those skills. I'll give you a good example actually. So I had an interview with BT, and one of the questions that I researched online was they're all about sort of customer service and how you can help help customers. So one of the interview questions that I saw was, they're going to ask you about, what's the sort of best customer service you've ever produced or given, I guess, or how have you satisfied a customer? And in the army, we don't I didn't really have customers as I had soldiers under me. So I said, okay, how about I reframe the question instead of customers being, someone like I'm selling a product to, it'll be my soldiers. They're my customers. That at the end of the day, I'm serving my soldiers. So I reframed the question like that, and then gave an answer where, one of my soldiers in Colchester, he I found an event that he could not have gone to because he was too low a rank. But then, I sort of went out my way, reached out to the person organizing this event. It was a pilgrimage to Mecca, and it was like a minimum rank of corporal, and he was a lance corporal. Reached out to sort of the organizer event, bigged up my soldier, and eventually got him onto this event. And he was so well received that he sort of became the de facto person to then go on all these other events and sort of promote the army and the Muslim community. And obviously, he was over the moon when I told him that he could go on this event. And it was just sort of reframing the question from something that they might not expect to hear, but then also just relating my military experience. So it's a bit of that.
The 2 interviews that you went for, that you got offered the jobs for, uh, did you take one of those jobs, firstly?
Yes. Yeah,
How
so
did you
yeah.
how did you decide between the 2 offers?
Well, so there was quite a stark difference into the interview process for both of them, because the current company I'm at now is quite small, quite agile, I would say. And the head of HR at my current company, he was great. He sort of, walked me through the whole process. He was messaging me, if not daily, weekly, just to see how I was getting on. And I had instant feedback. So I had 2 interviews, and I got instant feedback. And sort of by the end of the week, they were sort of putting together an offer for me. Whereas with BT, I think I had to wait almost 3 weeks before that they got back to me and offered me a place. By which time I had accepted the other offer. So I suppose that decision was already made by that point. And yeah, it was just a bit unfortunate that BT took so long.
I guess they're both very different companies, aren't they? Because you
Hmm.
mentioned your current company is very small and agile, whereas BT is a national, if not international
Hmm.
name, and so the experience was that in your consideration? Did you want to work for a smaller company?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Um, Given my experience at DT Squad, where there was only a team of 6, you get involved with all aspects of the development process, and you have a real impact. There's no real place to hide. So you get involved with a lot. You learn a lot. It's probably a lot harder. But I think with these things, especially with software development, I think just throwing yourself in the deep end, that's just the best way you'll learn. I imagine at BT, with the larger teams, you might be working on one small aspect of a larger project, and you might be, shoehorned into just one specific area. Whereas now, I'm involved with a few different projects, um, and they're all very different from one another. And I think there's more room to sort of move around in a smaller company. So for me, yeah, I really wanted to work for a smaller company just because you are forced to learn new and more things, I guess, rather than being at a bigger company. Um, Bit strange saying that coming from the army, but yeah.
But I guess the experience from DT Squad showed you what you wanted, right? And I think that's makes sense that you then made that decision. And within your current company, and for listeners, who do you currently work for?
So a company called Smart DCS IT. So they're a software development consultancy. Their main sort of parent company is Smart DCS, and they're involved with sort of cabling, network infrastructure, and sort of Smart DCS IT formed its own entity sort of halfway through 2023. So it's still quite a small team. I think we're a team of 9, but we work on some really interesting projects. Some of the guys I work with, incredibly talented. A few of them have PhDs in maths and AI, and I think everyone has a master's. So yeah, it was a bit nerve wracking coming into such an experienced team. But I'm slowly getting there, learning a lot in the process.
What an amazing place to learn, though, and in such a small team as well, because that
Hmm.
is that exposure is probably pretty unrivaled for where you're starting and where you could end up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. The project I'm on at the moment is complicated, very complicated, but I'm slowly getting there. The support is great. I think you normally find this with small teams. Everyone knows each other a lot better and are more willing to help out. So, which is great.
What other training are you doing at the moment? Because, I mean, you talked about how you started with Python.
Hmm.
Have you done any, specific software development courses through tech vets or, companies that offer training? And are you working on towards anything at the moment?
So I haven't done any training specifically through tech vets. I know they offer quite a lot of pathways, which are definitely worth exploring because there's a lot of savings to be had there. Luckily, my current company sort of heavily pushes the training aspect of things. So we get a £4,000 training budget every year to go spend on courses, books, conferences, whatever, really, just to sort of upskill yourself. I recently completed the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam, so I've passed that on Friday, and that
Congratulations.
thank you. And that was part of what my manager and I, we sat down and we set some goals a month and a half ago. That was one of them, so that's sort of now ticked off. Um, but yeah, it's you're always constantly learning. I think the certificate is just at the end of the day, it is just a piece of paper. Whether someone has done the certificate or not. Um, they might still have the underlying knowledge, but it's good to have it. It's good to say that I've done it. I've got the certificate. Things I'm sort of working towards next. So I mean, the company uses Python as their main language, and so I'm really trying to get a deeper understanding of Python. So I didn't realize it when I came into this company, but I pretty much only have a surface level knowledge of Python. So I've got a couple books that sort of go into Python much more in depth to sort of try and leverage the language as best I can. But in the future, I think maybe some more AWS certifications. So the company, uses AWS, and most of the clients um, expect us to be deploying on AWS. So if I can learn how to leverage their services, then great.
Brilliant. I think that's given people a lot of ideas about where to get started because I think becoming a software developer it sounds great, but I mean, where on earth do you start? But I think you've explained beautifully how you can go from, basic Python and then just build on it. And the connection with AWS, because TechVets works with AWS as well, is really pertinent because there are training opportunities within the TechVets program for people in AWS to advance their careers. So if you are listening to this and you want to follow in Adrian's footsteps, then get in touch with either Colin or Rachel at TechVets, and they'll help you find the right pathway into software development. And Adrian, lastly, when you look back at your military career and where you are now, what do you think are the skills that have given you the edge or the advantage from the military that you see that sets you apart from others who may have gone for the same role at Smart DCS IT, but not, you got it above them? What sets you apart?
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest takeaways, or one of the biggest things that you'll develop in the military, no matter where you are, is communication. How to communicate. Being a great software developer is not only about the technical skills that you pick up, but it's how you communicate your ideas with others. That is probably the number one takeaway. You can be a great software developer and have all these skills, but if you can't communicate your ideas, or work well in teams, then you can only really get so far. Initially, yeah, you want to build up those technical skills, but to get to that sort of senior level, communication, teamwork are the big ones, and that is a transferable skill that you will no doubt have coming out of the army. So leverage those skills, really bring them out in the interview. That although you might not be as technically astute as some of the people that you're going up against, where you really differ is that you will work well in any team that you get put into, and that you'll be able to communicate ideas effectively. So those two things.
They're brilliant, and I think that sums up, it sums up the inspiring parts of your story of where you've got to today. And it would be great to catch up with you in 6 to 12 months to catch up with you when you've nailed the other AWS qualifications, and see if you're biting at the heels of all of those guys and girls that you work with who have the PhDs.
Hmm.
In the subject, that in the area that you're working in. So for anyone who's listening, if they'd like to reach out to you for advice, where can they get in touch with you?
I'm available on the Tech Vets Discord, so I post there, not regularly, but you will see some of my posts on there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So just search for my name, Adrian Montague, and you'll find me. And then please, if you're on the same journey or wanting to get into where I am, please reach out, because I have had so much help from the community, tech vets, from others who have willingly helped me get to where I am today. So if I can pass that on to anyone listening, then please feel free to reach out at any point.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Adrian. And for anyone that's listening and you want to find out more about TechVets, just head to www.techvets.co and you'll find all of the pathways into training to become a software developer and other areas of tech on the website. And reach out to Adrian via Discord or LinkedIn, as he mentioned. Thank you so much, Adrian, for
Thank you very
joining
much,
us
Meredith.
today, and congratulations on your AWS Cloud Practitioner
Yeah,
certificate.
thank you.
Great news.
Thank you.